Okay, we're going to start a new topic on time. We've done enough division for now, and we've got to the point where I think we need to finish this off in the classroom with all of our resources and small groups and things like that. So we're going to move on to a unit on time. Time's quite a nice one. It's one that you should have the things at home that you need to help you with. So you should have calendars at home and clocks at home, watches and all those sorts of things, timetables, all the things that you need are either easily available on the internet or at home. So this should be a nice unit to do as a remote one. So we're learning to convert between days and weeks, months and years. That's the main important part of this lesson. Now, to start with, there are 7 days in a week. You need to know this. This is a fact that you need to know. Um, it's a number that has been decided at some point in the past by humans. Um, At some point, a little while back, someone tried to turn it into decimalize, and they tried to make 10 days a week, but nobody accepted it and no one took it on. The same goes for months of the year. There are 12 months in the year because we've split that year into 12 pieces. It's an entirely man-made choice. Some things are not man-made. How long a year is, we cannot decide that. It's how long it takes the Earth to go around the sun. That's how long a year is. How long a month is determined by phases of the moon to an extent. Yes, I suppose, which means actually the 12 months of the year isn't really our choice, but we could ignore that. But anyway, 7 days make a week. That is what it is. You just got to remember that. 12 months make a year. That is what it is. You've got to remember that. There have been different orders and times of months in history, but that's what we have decided on now. These two things are facts. You need to remember them. There are always 7 days in a week, and there are always 12 months in a year. This last one is not part of the learning objective, because it's not always actually true. 4 weeks is about a month, but it doesn't work brilliantly. February is the only month where that actually works. It's 4 weeks and a few days for the other months. It's also a pain because very rarely does a week start at the beginning of a month and end at the end of a month. Weeks overlap months, as we'll see later on. So the two important facts that you have got to take from this and remember and be able to tell me whenever you're needing it is that 7 days is a week, 12 months is a year. Now, you've known that for a while, I'm pretty sure. This next bit is taken from the Year 3 lesson. It's this little poem, this little rhyme. 30 days has something, 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 and something. All the rest have 31, except something alone that has 28 each year, that's supposed to say. Oh no, 28 days clear and 28 each leap year. It's a little poem for helping you remember how many days there are in each of the months. It's another fact that you just need to know. Now, beneath it, I found this lovely diagram. It was sent to us from Herts County Council. It's a really nice diagram. I like it. If it's a tall month, a tall black month, that means there's 31 days. If it's a green month, that means there's 30 days. And then February, with its weird changing number of days, starting at 28 but sometimes being 29, is done in orange. So if we label, or yellow, sorry, if we label these as January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December, we can see that the months that have got 31 days are January, March, May, July, April, October, and December. And then the months that are only 30, sorry, the months that are only 30 days are April, June, September, and November. Now, this poem does not put them in that order. The poem, for some reason, is 30 days has September, April, June, and November. It's not the order they actually are in the year, but it's the order of the poem. All the rest have 31 except February alone that has 28 days clear and 29 each leap year. That poem still remains the best way of remembering that. It's just facts you've got to know. And most adults I know, when you say to them, how many days are there in May, for example, they run that poem through their head. Ask your parents, they could be different, they could have another way of remembering it, but most adults I know, when I ask them, you can see them stopping and going through the poem in their head. You can almost see their eyes moving. This diagram is lovely, but you don't carry it with you. It's a clear way of seeing it, but it's not something you take around with you on a day-to-day basis. So using the diagram, I could go through and fill these in, or I could use the poem. So 30 days has September, so that one's got 30, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31 except February, which is 28 or 29. So that's 31, 31, 31, 31, 31, 31, and 31. You need to know this, but we will be using a calendar to do the harder work today. So you won't actually have to remember it because you can check the calendar. But it is a fact that you need to know, and it's a fact you needed to know since you're in year 3. So, like I said, learn that poem. It's the most useful way of doing it. It does help if you know your times tables. Our 7 times tables help us work out how many days in a certain number of weeks. So in 0 weeks, there are 0 days. In 1 week, there are 7 days. In 2 weeks, there are 14 days. In 3 weeks, there are 21 days. In 4 weeks, there are 28 days, 35 days, 42, 49, 56, 63, 70, 77, 84. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So you could use this to answer questions. The first type of question you're going to be given. How many days are there in 3 weeks? In 3 weeks, there are 21 days. How many days are there in 7 weeks? In 7 weeks, there are 49 days. It also works the other way around. So if someone says to you, how many weeks are there in 63 days? You read it backwards. There are 9 weeks in 63 days. How many weeks are there in 14 days? There are 2 weeks in 14 days. So the first section that you would do of work is going to use that times table. It's also going to use the 12 times tables because that does the same thing for months of the year. So in 0 years, there are 0 months. In a year, there's 12 months. In 2 years, there's 24 months. In 3 years, there's 36. And the pattern keeps on going. It's the 12 times tables. 48, 60, 72, 84, 96, 108, 120, 132, 144, 144. And again, you can do the same thing. How many months are there in 5 years? 60. How many months are there in 9 years? 108. It's not a very good 0, is it? And it can go backwards. So how many years are there in 24 months? 2 years. How many years are there in 84 months? 7 years. Do you get the idea? That'll be your main piece of work for today. But then we have these sort of worded questions, and these are going to be your worded questions. I'll go through some examples in a minute using a times table, but not a times table, a calendar, but not necessarily these ones. If the question asks you how many days, or asks you to say how many days, it's quite easy. You find the day that you're starting on, don't count the day that you're on. So the 18th, well, the day that we're on is Monday, the 8th of February. It's there. So the first question is saying to us, how many days to get us until the 18th of March? Well, there's the rest of this week, that week, that week, this day, which is actually the beginning of this week, that one, and that. So how many days? You've got 2 options here. Option number 1 is you just literally count them. You just go through and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you just go on and count. The other option is you say to yourself, well, how much to get to the end of this week? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Then there's 1 whole week, 2 whole weeks, 3 whole weeks, 4 whole weeks. 4 times 7, and that's when the times tables come into this. What's 4 times 7? It's 28. And then once you've got to that, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days to get to the 18th. So how many days in total to get from now to our target is 28 and those 2 5s. 28 and 2 5s is 10, so 38. How many days until the 18th of March 2021? 38 days. I suggest you do not count the day that you're on, but you do count the day that you're going for. Depending on the real life circumstance, you may or may not do that, but that's what I'm asking you to do today. I'm also asking you, if it is not Monday the 8th, when you do this piece of work, can you pretend that it is Monday the 8th? Otherwise it's going to make marking terribly hard, because I don't know whether you got it right or wrong, depending on when you did the piece of work. So pretend it's the 8th. How long until the 15th of November? Now, the next questions, it asks you to do it as days and as a total number of weeks. So if we look at this one, how long until the 15th of November? Let's clear this off. If we're to do this as days and weeks, like the other question asks, well, days isn't too bad. It's exactly what we just did, but there's just going to be more to count. So if you're literally counting it individual days, you're just going to have more to count, but it will still work. If you're doing this thing where you count until the end of 1 week, and then you count the weeks and times that by 7, and then you count the last few days, it will be quicker, but you'll have more weeks to do. The other one is if it asks you just in weeks. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, where you have to use a little bit of your own judgment. We are starting on the 8th of February. We are aiming for the 15th of November, which is here. So counting weeks becomes the tricky bit. So we're on week 6. We've got all of week 7, week 8, week 9. Week 9 is split across 2 months, but it's still only 1 week. Week 10, 11, 12, 13, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. This one is that one, we've already counted it. That one is that one, we've already counted it. That one is that one, we've already counted it. That one is that one, we've already counted it. That one is that one, we've already counted it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. It's 39 whole weeks. But the rest of this week and the beginning of this one here, so there's the rest of this week and the beginning of this week, and frankly, they add up to another week. So it's actually 40 weeks. But depending on when your birthday falls or various questions that you're asked falls, it may or may not be a whole week. I'm going to ask you to round it. And it's a hard thing to do, and you had enough trouble rounding when it was to the nearest 10. But if it's 1 or 2 days, pretend that week doesn't exist. If it's 5 or 6 or 7 days, call it a week. If it's in the middle, you're going to have to make that call. Let's say 1, 2, and 3 days don't count, but 4, 5, 6, and 7 days do. How long until the 15th of November 2028? Well, it's exactly the same as this, but it's 7 years in the future. So it's 40 weeks plus 7 years, and a year is 12. That's in months, isn't it? So it's, well, at this point, you'd do it in months, wouldn't you? I don't think you'd do this in weeks. I would say until that, it's that whole month, 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 that whole month. And the end of February and the beginning of November probably add up to 1. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's probably about 9 months. And then it's 7 years, which have each got 12 months in them. 7 12s is 84, so it's 9 add 84, which is 93 months. That makes sense? So your questions. The first question is doing things within a year, your next birthday, Christmas, the summer holidays, those things will all happen within a year from now. So those ones it's asking you to do in days, and it's asking you to do it in weeks. So do it in days first, do it in weeks, or do it in weeks and convert it into days. It's your choice, but show us both. How many months until you're 18? You are now only talking months. And again, if it's a bit of a month, if the bit of the month at the beginning and the bit of the month at the end add up to nearly a whole month, count it. If it doesn't add up to much, don't count it. If you're not sure, count it. And then this last one is the hardest one of the lot. Pick you and somebody else, and then you count how many weeks or how many days older than them or younger than them you are. So you find them on the calendar, you find you on the calendar, birthdays, and then you count the gap in between. These are the harder questions. Have a go at these, please, if you can. This will be my level 2, but level 1 I think everybody should better do. You just might need to write your timetables out first. Any questions? Just send us a message.